And good afternoon, racing fans. Welcome to Hawthorne Racecourse for a Thursday afternoon of thoroughbred action. I can tell you this, I am here. Emily is here. I think Jason is here. I'm not sure. He was a few seconds late, but I think he's here today. He's so excited about the Preakness. That must be what it is, Emily. Huh?
Between that and our first grass race day of the year, I mean, what's not to be excited about? Right. This is the place to be.
I mean, it's chaos. It's hysteria. We had the Cap Man here earlier. The Cap. I mean, Cap was wearing some nice white jacket. He had his little man purse going with him. He was wearing Jordans today.
Oh, I'm wearing Jordans today too.
There you go. I don't know if they make them in my size. I'm sure they do, but
they make them in my little tiny foot size.
I wonder if they're more expensive. I'm a size 14, so I wonder if they're more expensive. And he did get in, so I love that. Good for him. See, we were talking a little bit about some odds for the AL Central. So that was the thing too with my friend Mike over here that just came by. We both are believers that the White Sox can win the AL. So just the Central, just the division. So hopefully they can just win game by game. So we'll see. But that's baseball, Emily. We need to talk horse racing here. So the Preakness is this weekend. So let's start with the Preakness before we get into the Hawthorne card. Preakness goes as race 13 at Pimlico. We're coming out of a Derby that had 18 starters, only one back from the Derby that is in the Preakness. That's Mage. I don't even know if they really even wanted to run in this race. What do you think?
Yeah, you know, I think that's the storyline, right? Is everybody's kind of starting with that, right? You have the Derby winner, so that brings some hype. There's obviously, you know, the intent. Everybody wants the Triple Crown to go on to Belmont. And for the players, you know, we kind of have this different standpoint is Mage the favorite because he's the deserving favorite as an individual, or is he the favorite because he's the one Derby horse, he won the Derby, he just kind of seems like the right time and place? And I think that's where we have to start with as far as assessment. And I've heard I've done a couple shows already talking to Preakness and followed some other media, and a lot of the conversation is people saying, you know, I was wrong about him in the Derby. And I think that's kind of a controversial standpoint. I mean, if you can go back and say, here's what I missed, and here's where I went wrong by missing that horse. But if I missed just the winner. We miss winners all the time. That's part of the game, right? So if you're looking from that standpoint, he's not going to be much value because he does have that Derby hype. He kind of feels like there's a lot of people that maybe I was wrong last time, I don't want to be wrong once again, and you're going to get a short price. And maybe he is the best horse, but we've seen throughout this season is it hasn't been necessarily the best horse winning, maybe with Forte down in Florida, but it's been the best horse on the day. And so I'm attacking this race from that standpoint, is maybe I can concede if Mage is the quote-unquote best horse in this race, maybe there's a best horse on the day and we can try to beat him at a short price.
And you and I talk all the time about value. So when you were looking at the Derby, Mage was 15-1, it was a whole different story there. Then you're providing some value. Then in a race that the morning of had the horse that was going to be the favorite scratch, and Mage just barely lost to that horse in the race prior. And it was 15-1. Like you mentioned, we're talking the Preakness, it's an 8-horse field, probably right around the morning line, 8-5, 7-5, somewhere right around there. So there's not value. So then you have to start looking elsewhere, and we talk about taking a stance. Sometimes you take that stance for, sometimes you take that stance against. I'm with you, I'm going against as well. So you have the other 7 horses in here. Where would you want to start then for the Preakness?
Well, I'm going to go with number 6, Perform. And a horse that I've talked about in the past, and he's lost to Mage going back to a maiden race earlier this year out at Gulfstream Park. But as far as a horse, he really hasn't done anything wrong, and he just might be finding himself at this point in time. He's improving with each race, numbers-wise, improving with the added ground. He was strong breaking his maiden, made a couple moves down at Tampa. It's going that 2 turns, just a little over a mile. And then he was very impressive. At least to me, I thought that was a better-than-looked effort winning the Tessio Stakes. He stumbled at the start, which kept him further off the pace. When you look at that running line, it's a little bit tough to see, not overly exaggerated, but he's off the pace. And he has trouble multiple times down inside. And watching the stretch, it's pretty clear. He looks like at the 16th pole, there's no way this horse is going to win. And he finds a way to get through. And that just tells me there's a horse that's grit. Now, you can concede that that wasn't the strongest field in the world, wasn't the strongest figure, but the figures are moving the right way. As far as it being a soft field, was able to get some confidence there. And I went back and looked at some of the works. This is Shug McGahee. He gets good horses. He knows what to do with good horses. And Perform, going back to last summer at Saratoga, was working with a horse called General Jim. General, and actually kind of outworking him in my eye, and at the least they were holding their own. And General Jim won the Swale. He also ran in the Mucho Macho Man, and then he most recently came back and won the Pat Day Mile. So that just tells me, as far as we talk about this all the time,
Sure.
Intent. They've always had intent for Perform, and they just might have been able to figure him out and coming into his own. So I have to take a shot with him in this race, especially at that price. I think he's going to be a little bit overlooked in here. Just, obviously he can be no worse than the 5th choice in this race.
The thing about the horse, too, I mean, overcame so much in that last out. I mean, it was running against running style. It was a stumble. It was trouble, trip throughout. And like you said, at the 16th pole, looked like had no shot. And then the horse wins. So you figure, okay, clean break, probably puts you into the race a little bit more, shorter field. A race at the pace doesn't appear to be overly fast by any means. And I think that puts a horse like Perform in the mix for sure. And you're right. Everything's kind of headed in that right direction. This horse may not have peaked yet. Things may be in a position where Perform runs a really good race. A horse that I wanted to talk about is the one, National Treasure, in here. I'm thinking First Mission will be your second choice and probably take a lot of action off that win in the Lexington. But National Treasure is kind of that horse that I think they thought they had something pretty good, especially early on in their career, and they were trying to get into the Derby and then couldn't do so. It was as much to transfer to the barn at Tim Yakteen going into the Santa Anita Derby, and you come to find out, at least for them, second would have gotten them into the Derby.
Yep.
Unfortunately, they run 4th. It wasn't a terrible race, but now you're back with Bob Baffert. This was a horse that was well intended from the start. I guess if you get that 4-1, is that something that you can work around a little bit in the Preakness?
Again, I'm keying off a longer shot in the race, so certainly would use as well. And he's a horse that's been consistent. He hasn't really come with that kind of flashy win or flashy effort. He's a little bit one pace, so that is probably part of the reason that they put the blinkers back on. I mean, they're really turning up the screws, watching his works. He's working solo, which is kind of rare for Baffert. He typically works horses in company, and this horse has been in company in the past. He was outworking Reincarnate before the Derby. So now they're really, again, turning the screws, getting him ready. I think he's coming into this race as good as National Treasure could possibly be, and it's just a matter of, is he good enough on the day? As we mentioned, he's likely to show some tactical speed in here, and that might be the key, especially from the inside, under aggressive ride, under Velazquez, and getting back to that front running trip. And it will also probably put Mage in a spot where, if National Treasure and First Mission are the horses to beat, I can't let those horses get too far out and ahead of me. So he might have to stick a little bit closer to the pace, and then coming back in 2 weeks, maybe that's another factor against. But I mean, National Treasure seems like, again, there's intent there coming into this race and should put forth an honest effort.
All right, now we talk about prices, and you look at the plot. There's a big yellow circle around the number 4, Coffeewithchris, a horse that I talked about with Dave Kaplan a little bit earlier in the day. I think Coffeewithchris is going to be in the mix at the top of the stretch. The question is the horse still going to be in the mix at the wire? And I don't know if we know or not yet, but looking at pace scenario-wise, this is a horse that at least should get some calls and contend much of the way, don't you think?
Yeah, no, I think they're going to send. They're going to be out there forwardly placed, and how close National Treasure kind of sticks with him, or First Mission keeping around. But I think they're going to send. He comes out of the same Tessio race where he took some pace pressure that day. Just didn't have enough kick late. So stamina-wise, is going to have to show a little bit more. This is probably a tougher spot. And I just looked at him from like a physical standpoint. He kind of looks like a turf horse, so maybe he'll end up going there. But to your point, as far as the pace, he should definitely be out in front early. I think that's their best chance to give this horse his best chance in order to compete.
All right, so as we look at the plots, you see a big round yellow circle around the 4, Coffeewithchris. Then it's a big green square with the 5, Red Route 1. So what does that mean for us looking at a race like this, pace scenario-wise, and what kind of chances we have for Red Route 1?
Yeah, he's kind of interesting because he's been, in those races out at Oaklawn Park, such a deep closer, so far off the pace. But those races out at Oaklawn Park, that pace early on was so very fast. And so that kind of kept him so far off the pace. And this pace scenario might not be as contentious, certainly not as fast as expected. So maybe that brings Red Route 1 a little bit closer. Doesn't have to be, 20 lengths back of the first call or of those pace setters. And he's more of a confirmed closer. And we talk about Mage. Mage was able to run from off the pace, had the race flow in the Derby. And Red Route 1 is a confirmed closer. That's his typical running style. So I think he has that to his advantage, where he's not going to be taken out of his game. It's just a matter if they can keep him a little bbit closer so he doesn't have too much to do late.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the price is. I don't know if he's going to be 10-1 in here. I think he might take a little bit more action, maybe be somewhere 7-1, 8-1, that type of thing. Now going the other way, I tend to wonder what the price on the 7 Blazing Sevens is going to be. 6-1 in the morning line. Ran an okay race in the Bluegrass. I mean, it was okay. I think maybe you need to get a little bit more price on this one to be playable. What do you make of a horse like the 7 Blazing Sevens?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think value does have to be assessed because he's coming into this race where his numbers are just lighter than the others. I mean, his numbers are even lighter than Perform, and you can see the shift as far as the morning line. Now, he's a horse that has some upside. He could project to move forward. He's in the 3rd start of the form cycle. He ran back to his top juvenile figure, running in the Bluegrass in his most recent starts. You could easily project that move forward. But I think where the line maker might a little bit right on this is just because it's Chad Brown.
Yep.
And Chad Brown's had so much success in this race. And I think that in some ways that plays against Blazing Sevens as an individual because he's going to get a lot of that. Well, the barn's done this before. They won with cloud computing. They won with last year,
and they take it like it's the same racehorse.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I think Blazing Sevens is going to run his best race on the day. Whether that's good enough, we haven't seen it yet. But I think that I wouldn't talk anybody off. But for me, I'm going to be more concentrated on the value.
But you're right. You make a great point there because I run into the same thing here at Hawthorne. If you see the name Larry Ravelli pop up, you know they're going to take action regardless of what the racehorse looks like on paper. Kind of the same for when you get Brown and I read Ortiz here. So that's kind of the way things unfold. So for you, it looks like you're working around the 6 Perform, correct?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I have to take a shot at the price in this race. If Mage wins or one of the other shorter prices, I will live to fight another day, but I'm not going to let that one go by at 15-1, that's for sure.
I'm with you. I mean, for me, it'll probably be National Treasure, but I have to get every bit of that 4-1 to play. I think anything shorter, then I might look elsewhere, or even just sit and watch. So we'll see how things unfold for the Preakness. Someone's cheering for the 3 who's like up by a country mile in the stretch at Gulfstream, so he won. So congratulations, you can calm down. You're okay.
$20 horse though, so it's a valid route.
Well,
going that way.
It's a valid route. I mean, you're at 8-1. You glance right above our camera here. He's still cheering. The horse has galloped out to the 7/8 pole, and he must have had a good score.